With Professors Guerrero and Bevacua, we're talking about this military buildup as well. You know, some of the concerns that the Parajita Todo folks will have against people who say speak up either against it or have concerns about it. It was like, well, okay, that's fine to voice your concern, and we're definitely not going to move forward with this at all costs. But we definitely are in an economic slump. And what are your solutions to our economic slump other than just voicing concerns? Because, hey, you know, with the buildup and economic prosperity, all these concerns you have will be taken care of.
That was one thing that, because I've watched very closely this whole military buildup conversation for the past 6 years, because it was first announced in 2005. And it was always very funny and frustrating how little there was to the conversation, but how much people felt there was there. And so that's why, as time went on, if you ever spoke out against the buildup, people felt like you were taking something away from them. Mm-hmm. Like that something had been offered to them, and by criticizing it, by saying it's not really that good, you shouldn't support it, it's bad for Guam, people would like react and say, don't take away this buildup, don't take away the jobs that have been promised to me. Mm-hmm. And for years it didn't make any sense because there was nothing on paper. Mm-hmm. The buildup was nothing. The buildup was a fantasy. Mm-hmm. And so I thought it really strange then how people were supposed to, if you wanted to criticize the buildup, you were supposed to offer a counter proposal when the buildup was nothing. Mm-hmm. And the buildup is still, even if you read the EIS, the buildup is still very mixed. Mm-hmm. The buildup was only a golden ticket when it was a fantasy. Mm-hmm. The moment you understood and you read the fine print, mm-hmm. then you realize that at best it's a good dream that turns into a nightmare, and then you wake up.
Yeah, you know, I've always said that's it. You know, in this buildup, this is an opportune time for Guam to be able to sit on the table, or if we're not on the table, give our concerns and our needs to be put on the table, because this is a mutual time when our nation needs Guam and we need some things to be settled, like our war reparations, our compact impact, and maybe helping us fund, of course, our plebiscite here in Guam. You know, the other thing, Mike, we talked about, or Doc, about this going way back, you know, 2005, when it was talked about this buildup as well, is the concerns again, not only of the amount of people that are going to be coming in here. Okay, these are a lot of them are in transient positions as well, right? The H2 side, and there are laws in the books right now that are definitely focusing on local employment. But even with that, we see that these are temporary as well, as you were saying. When the building is finished, you may go to another building, but at some point that building is going to be stopped being built. You're going to have to either go inside, and are you going to be the maintenance person? Are you going to be the computer person? Are you going to be the elevator person? What person are you going to be? How are you going to transcend, or transform into now being a part of this whole thing?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why we decided to write the letter, which was kind of critical of Parajita Todo, is the fact that there's all these concerns now, and for a long time the activists voiced these concerns, and most people kind of said, well, that's what the activists say, it doesn't really matter. But then you come to the point where the military admits to those things. The military admits that there's not really a lot of good paying jobs for locals. There's really a lot of damage that will happen to the environment, and there's not really a lot of meaningful mitigation in the process.
And that's not something that you guys came out with. No. It came out on the EIS.
Yes. And what's important to note too, that I don't think until the EIS came out that we as a community considered, is also the impact on our social services. So we're talking, like you said, transient communities coming in, workers coming in. They're not coming in with military privileges, meaning they're going to go to Naval Hospital. Our current hospital, which is already at capacity, is going to be further taxed. Right? Our current public health system, our current mental health system, our schools, all of the public services that already are struggling just to get by are going to have to make room for a bunch of people, and there's no commitment whatsoever to fund what we're going to need to do to upgrade that. The hospital cannot afford to take on thousands of more patients.
Of course not.
And so that is a very big deal that's not even accounted for in that infrastructural budget that you quoted earlier. And really, there have been different amounts that GovGuam is going to have to pay. So I remember when a GAO report came out a few years ago saying GovGuam would pay $6 billion. That's also not in the $10 billion price tag. And then we just saw the recent GAO report saying that the buildup itself in total is going to cost, you know, $22 billion. So these are serious, that's a lot of money that neither the federal government nor our local government has.
Well, one of the things I know, I mean, the critics have been very critical in statements that the buildup is probably going to be prolonged because of the fact there are folks like yourself who are critical or are needing answers for that. But we have since found out that it's really not it's not because they came and necessarily talked to folks like yourself, or not even yourselves, but folks who had questions about it. But they even admitted 2-3 years back, yesterday's paper and the WikiLeaks cable leak, where they knew that this was going to that this was unrealistic. The time frame's unrealistic. The time frame and the amount, be it in human resources or the economic side of it, is unrealistic. But I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and go to Dave. Is it David from Delano when we come back? Tawanamagi.